If you believe individuals should be trusted to make their own decisions about what to read, young people deserve to see themselves reflected in a library's books. And parents should not be making decisions about what to read for other parents' children. Then you may want to join us and unite against book bans. Jennie Pu is here. She is a member of the American Library Association's Policy Core Cadre on proactive advocacy, opposing book banning, and the director of the Hoboken Public Library, which was the first sanctuary city in New Jersey. Jennie, welcome to the Book Fest.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start there. Can you tell us about the Hoboken Public Library and the first book sanctuary city? What was that all about?
That took place, we became the first book sanctuary city in New Jersey, not the first one nationally. That was Chicago. We declared that in August, last August. The city followed suit in September. It's really simple. It was a strong declaration of who we are as a community and what we stand for, which is the freedom to read. And it really was a public statement and declaration of our values. And it was the values that were shared by the community, the members of Hoboken City. And since then, that happened in September, we now in New Jersey have 14 more book sanctuary libraries and more coming on board.
And what does that exactly mean when you're a book sanctuary library? Can you
Mhm.
talk about that a little bit?
Sure. Well, first of all, the book sanctuary movement, anyone can be a book sanctuary. You don't have to be a library. We love what we love about this. It's a proactive step towards safeguarding the individual right to read. You can start a book sanctuary on a shelf in a corner of your room. For a library, it's simple, really. The library board, as an autonomous agency, chooses to vote in public on a resolution. And the resolution can be crafted to their library and community, but very loosely, what it is affirming the First Amendment, the right to read, the individual's decision, their ability to choose what they want to read, and affirming that the library won't stand for censorship. So that's really in simple what it is. It's also, in our case, a call to action. Um, to clearly state that we will protect and actively collect endangered books. We share them, we make them accessible, we talk about them, and we hold events around them.
I love that. I love that. Absolutely. Um, can you talk a little bit about why you feel people should care? Why readers should care on the one hand, and
Mhm.
also why writers should care? Because I work with a lot of writers, I talk to a lot of writers, and it's surprising and a little frightening how few writers really know what's going on.
Yeah, no, it's we are seeing an unprecedented number of bans in this country that we haven't seen in probably 60 years. So I'm not surprised that a lot of people are still unaware of it. Why everyone should care is because this is a fundamental right. This is what makes us American. You know, I don't, like you said, I don't get to tell you what you or can't read, just like I don't have the right to tell you what you can or can't express in writing. So, as a writer, as a reader, we should definitely pay attention to this because it is affecting all our communities, including solid blue states like New Jersey. We have book bans happening here, right here in our community. And so we can't take these for granted. And that's why we should all care.
Can you talk a little bit about the mechanisms of what does a book ban mean? Again, to somebody who might not necessarily be in the know, are there lists? Are there political agendas? How does a book get banned?
So, generally speaking, in the past, maybe 3 years ago, how a book was banned it was what we saw an individual would write to, let's say, a public library, because I work for one, and say, I don't like Walter the farting dog because it has the word fart in it. This is a real case. And I
Mhm.
want it removed from the library's collections. Now, all libraries have a process for this, a procedure. There's usually a form, and then depending on the library, they follow that process, and then a decision is made whether or not to remove the book. It's a little bit different for school libraries because they are governed a little bit differently. There's a board of education, but similarly, there's a committee, there's discussion. What we've seen in the last 3 years, a change in that behavior. So it's gone from one person, one title, to maybe one person, 100 titles. And this is what's so scary about this movement is a handful of individuals trying to ban or withdraw or really make inaccessible entire genres. So, for example, there are libraries that they have received book bans for any book that has to do with by or written about an LGBTQ character. And so that is why this movement is so, I think people need to pay attention to this because when they ban a book and if it's successful, that means that that story is now inaccessible to everyone.
Mm-hmm. And
Fortunately,
that,
go ahead.
oh no, yeah, no, you're getting me. You're starting to get me riled up, Jenny. This is where I get a little bit angry about it because of the fact that, children, young people, adults too. I mean, like you said, it's a little bit different in the educational system, but if a child is reading a book or a young person is reading a book, they want to see themselves in those characters. So to just take a category like that and make those broad brushstrokes, that is just so disturbing.
It's I think it's fundamentally un-American. And
Yeah,
it's a real human right because you're basically wiping the existence of certain groups of people, right? And you're absolutely right. This is even more urgent for our students. And I'm a mother and I have kids, right? And when you're a teenager and you're trying to discover yourself, for a lot of young people, they turn to books. It's safe, right? You don't maybe you're not comfortable asking these questions about your identity to another person, let alone a parent. So that's why books are so powerful. That's why these stories need to be told.
absolutely. And in many cases, you bring up LGBTQ plus, but
Mhm.
there's also books that are being banned or challenged that are from different ethnic groups, different religious groups. And it seems that many of these book bannings and challenges are centering around a certain political and ideology spectrum. Do you feel, and maybe we should just call it out, is there an ulterior agenda happening behind the scenes, do you think?
I think quite simply it is about denying power. It's really what I see it as the underlying reason for this is a consolidation and the desire to control the narrative and control the story of who we are and not share that power with everyone. That's how I see it because when you're trying to wipe out like whole groups of voices, they don't have a say, they can't see themselves, and therefore they don't exist. That's why this movement I think is so much more than books. It's really about power.
Yeah. And now we have a few things that are coming up, and I do want to talk about how people can get involved and what they can do. But we have Right to Read Day as well
Mhm.
as National Library Week. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, sure. So the Right to Read Day, I believe the first one was last year. And now, I know there is a day that's designated for it. I'm not quite sure this year. I think it's in April. You can probably correct me on that, Desiree. It's really every day. And I'm going to fall back on our book sanctuary movement. We have a book sanctuary display that we keep refreshed and we get so many people coming through our doors looking for that display and then asking questions. Why is this book banned? Why is this on the shelf and trying to be challenged? And that gives us an opportunity to talk to people. One, to raise awareness of this happening. Two, what you can do about it. Start your own book sanctuary, contribute to this, talk about it, read a banned book. Um, the other question you asked is National Library Week. Yes, that's coming up in April, and that's really a celebration we see of all things libraries. Um, I see libraries as one of there's very few things that, for me, I'm second generation American, that's more American than a public library. It strikes me, it doesn't matter how small of a town you go to, from New York Public Library to the smallest town in Missoula, there's a public library, right? And so National Library Week is really about celebrating libraries, stories, and of course, the right to read.
Yeah, and I think too that in some areas of the country, New Jersey is, you pointed out, it's a bluer state, or it is a
Mhm,
blue state. There's lots of states that are more purple and a little bit more red too. And in
mhm,
some areas, the educators, the librarians, the people that are in those positions are afraid. And that's one of the
mhm,
things that worries me because it's easy to just cave in if you feel that you might be putting something on the shelf that might cause you personal trauma. I mean, it's not an exaggeration that there have been threats against people. They are losing their
mhm,
jobs, they are being removed.
mhm, mhm.
So doing this also shows solidarity and shows that this side of the movement is strong too.
I want to say, Desiree, actually, the side of uh, survey after survey have shown, poll after poll have shown, most Americans oppose book bans, and that's what fuels us. That's what makes us feel this work. We can do it together.
Absolutely. And what about, so, okay, now that we got folks with us, they're riled up, they are energized, and then they want to do something. Are there resources? Are there
Of
things that they
course,
can do?
there's so
Talk
many
about
things.
that.
Well, one, read a banned book. I will say, really, if you're curious about it, please read it. Talk about it with someone. Of course, you mentioned Unite Against Book Bans. That's a great website. You can just Google it, UABB. There's a toolkit. There are simple things you can do. Write an op-ed, attend a library board meeting, a school board meeting, but mostly talk to other people about it. Talk about these banned books. And then I think when we make this grassroots, it's really organic, and you'll hear that most people will be surprised that it's a handful of people trying to do this work, and they won't stand for it.
Absolutely. Jenny Pu, thank you so much for joining us and talking to us on the Book Fest. All of this information is great. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.